A whole year rolled by. One morning, toward the end of November, my servant awoke me and announced that the great John Rowell had been murdered during the night. Half an hour later, I entered the Englishman's house, together with the police commissioner and the captain of the gendarme. The servant, bewildered and in despair, was crying before the door. At first, I suspected this man, but he was innocent. The guilty party could never be found. On entering John's parlor, I noticed the body stretched out on its back in the middle of the room. His vest was torn, the sleeve of his jacket had been pulled off. Everything pointed to a violent struggle. The Englishman had been strangled. His face was black, swollen, and frightful, and seemed to express a terrible fear. He held something between his teeth, and his neck, pierced by 5 or 6 holes which looked as though they had been made by some iron instrument, was covered with blood. A physician, Dr. Ella Victor, joined us, examined the finger marks on the neck for a long time, and then made this strange announcement.
It looks as though he had been strangled by a skeleton.
A cold chill seemed to run down my back, and I looked over to where I'd formerly seen the terrible hand. It was no longer there. The chain was hanging down, broken. I bent over the dead man, and in his contracted mouth I found one of the fingers of this vanished hand, cut, or rather sawed off by the teeth down to the second knuckle. Then the investigation began. Nothing could be discovered. No door, window, or piece of furniture had been forced. The 2 watchdogs had not been aroused from their sleep. Here, in a few words, is the testimony of the servant. For a month, his master had seemed excited. He had received many letters, which he would immediately burn. Often, in a fit of passion which approached madness, he had taken a switch and struck wildly at this dried hand riveted to the wall, which had disappeared, no one knows how, at the very hour of the crime. He would go to bed very late and carefully lock himself in. He always kept weapons within reach. Often at night he would talk loudly, as though he were quarreling with someone. That night, somehow, he had made no noise, and it was only going on to open the windows that the servant had found John murdered. He suspected no one. I communicated what I knew of the dead man to the judges and public officials. Throughout the whole island, a minute investigation was carried on. Nothing could be found out. One night, about 3 months after the crime, I had a terrible nightmare. I seemed to see the horrible hand running over my curtains and walls like an immense scorpion or spider. 3 times I woke. 3 times I went to sleep again. 3 times I saw the hideous object galloping around my room and moving its fingers like legs. The following day, the hand was brought to me, found in the cemetery, on the grave of John Rowell, who had been buried there because we had been unable to find his family. The first finger was missing. There is my story. I know nothing more.
The woman, deeply stirred, was pale and trembling. She exclaimed,
But that is neither a climax nor an explanation. We will be unable to sleep unless you give us your opinion of what had occurred.
I shall certainly spoil your terrible dreams. I simply believe that the legitimate owner of the hand was not dead, that he came to get it with his remaining one. But I don't know how. It was a kind of vendetta.
No, it can't be that.
and the judge, still smiling, said,
Didn't I tell you my explanation would not satisfy you?